Kellen receives $15,000 from his grandmother. He goes to a financial advisor who tells him to put part of his money in a stock fund that returns 8.5% interest and part of his money in a bond fund that returns 5% interest. How much money should Kellen put in each fund if he wants to earn $960 a year in interest? And so again, the first question is, what are we looking for? How much money should Kellen put in each fund? We have two different funds, so we're going to have two different amounts, and I'm going to use the variables x and y to represent those amounts. So I'm going to say let x represent the amount invested in the stock fund, which is at 8.5%, and I'll let y represent the amount invested in the bond fund, and that is at 5%. And each of these amounts invested are in terms of dollars. So now we have two different situations going on. We know that the amounts are related by the total. We're told that Kellen receives $15,000. And he's going to invest all of it. So from the $15,000, we know that those two amounts, x plus y, must equal 15,000. Kellen goes to a financial advisor who tells him to put part of his money in a stock fund that returns 8.5%, and part of the money that returns 5%. He wants to earn $960 a year in interest. So now let's focus on the interest. But now we have two different interests going on. Each of those interests, recall, interest is a principal times a rate times a time. But we have two different interests. So here's my second equation. The interest in the stock fund plus the interest in the bond fund, we want those to add up to $960. But now each of those interests is a principal times a rate times a time. So now let me just rewrite that first equation. X plus y is equal to 15,000. But now this interest in the stock is a principal times a rate times a time. Okay, so now the stock. The principal is the amount of money invested. So that would be x. The rate for the stock is 8.5%, so that's 0.085. And the time, well, we're told that the time is, he wants to earn $960 a year. So that's 1 year. Plus, the interest from the bond fund is again a principal, a rate, and a time. The principal is y dollars. The rate is 5%, so 0.05, and again after 1 year. And that will give us $960. So we now have a system of equations that we can use to solve this problem. So now let's solve it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up that second equation. Alright, so I'm just going to write in black now. X plus y is 15,000. And the second equation I'm going to write, well, 0.085 times 1 is just 0.085. So I'm just going to write that as 0.085x plus, similarly, 0.05y is equal to 15,000. Now, we want to solve this system. So I'm going to use an elimination, since we're in the elimination section. And so what I'm going to do is think ahead. I'm going to look at the coefficients on y. I have a positive 1 and I have a positive 0.05. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the first equation, both sides of that first equation, by, let's see, it would have to be negative 0.05. So that would give me equivalently on the first equation negative 0.05x minus 0.05y equals negative 750. And the second equation is still 0.085x plus 0.05y equals, that shouldn't have been a 15,000, I just rewrote that incorrectly. That should have been a 960 here. So that would be 960. Sorry for that error. So then that would give me an elimination on y. So let's go through that elimination by adding the equations together. Negative 0.05 plus 0.085 is 0.035x. We have an elimination on y, and 960 and negative 750 combine to 210. Dividing through by 0.035, so 210 divided by 0.035 is 6,000. So x is 6,000. What about y? I'm going to use the fact that x plus y is 15,000. So then 6,000 plus y is 15,000. And subtracting 6,000 from both sides, we find that y is equal to 9,000. So, a conclusion. Kellen should invest $6,000 in the stock fund and $9,000 in the bond fund.